Hi everybody, Steven here. So you're ready to set up VMware's vDefend and start taking advantage of the advanced threat prevention and services such as malware, network detection response, and network intelligence, right? But you need to get started on that, and there's a thing called the Security Services Platform Installer. What is it? What's it all about? That's what we're going to cover in this video. See you in a bit. Hey, thanks for sticking around. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about vDefend, but more specifically, we're going to look at the Security Services Platform, the installer. We'll take a look at what this Security Services Platform is, where it came from. There was a thing called the NSX Application Platform. So I'll touch on a bit of that, but we're going to look at how we get things set up, all right? Now, before I do that, I always like to throw this out at this point. Hey, if this is stuff that you kind of like, please consider supporting the channel. It's totally free. Just got to hit that subscribe button. Really free. Other ways to support the channel: leaving comments supports the channel, helps with the YouTube analytics, liking videos, sharing videos. All that stuff helps out with the YouTube analytics. I also have super thanks enabled, but that's totally up to you. So why don't we get started? I got a little bit of a lecture piece, and then we'll jump right into doing the demo. Okay? See you in a bit. Okay, so let's start talking about what this is. So vDefend, in order to take advantage of some of the services that are available under vDefend, you need to be licensed for that stuff, by the way. Stuff like network detection response, security intelligence, which used to be called NSX Intelligence, malware prevention, network traffic analysis, metrics. I'm going to do videos on all these individually. In order to take advantage of these or be able to utilize these services, we used to have to deploy this thing called the NSX Application Platform. And basically, in a nutshell, you had to have a Kubernetes environment set up. So you had to set that up. If not, you could have used Tanzu. I forget what they call it now. It doesn't really matter. But you had to do that. And that was kind of a bit daunting for some people, even me. I'm not a Kubernetes person. I barely know how to spell it, right? So I think it was about a year ago. We're in July of 2025. I think it was about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. They came out with the NSX Application Platform appliance, right? It was like, I think it was called NA Auto, something like that. So it was an appliance that if you didn't have a Kubernetes environment, no problems, this could set one up for you. It could spin it up for you, which was kind of cool. I thought, oh, that's pretty nice. Again, this thing also does require a fair amount of resources. You'll see that as I'm going through this, all right? But that didn't really, it was okay. Let's put it that way. Then they came out recently, and I think it was March of 2025. So not that long ago, a few months back, right now recording this, they came out with this thing called the Security Services Platform, right? And there's this thing called the installer, and I'll show you this, right? It's an appliance that actually does all this for you, right? So let's actually go to the next slide here. So basically, here's the installer this appliance that you deploy, right? And in my lab environment, I'm going to call it ssp-inst.vclass.local, and there's its IP. Again, I have to have a fully qualified domain name, forward and reverse set up for that. So you do this installer. Notice they also mention here SSP LCM Lifecycle Manager. So you actually manage the environment from there, the life cycle of it, upgrades and stuff like that. And we'll see that as we go through this, okay? This installer will set up this whole environment for you. These are all containers and pods and all that wonderful stuff. And it sets up this thing called the SSP Security Services Platform Administration. So you would actually go into here. So there's a fully qualified domain name I need as well, right? The SSP. I'm calling it ssp.vclass.local, and there's its IP, and I'll talk about that. So that's the instance name, right? So it's going to set all this stuff up for you without you having to worry about even knowing how to spell Kubernetes, which is kind of nice, all right? You'll have your NSX managers over here. I actually have my NSX management cluster. Once this is all up and running, you need to register that. I'll do that in a separate video. This will be long enough. Then you got your vCenter server, and then you got DNS as well. And right now, I'm putting this all on my management network, so the NSX manager can talk to it. You can, if you want to. Now, notice I got this on one flat network. Mine's the 172.20.10 network. You can do that. You can do this, though, if you want to. You could actually have a router in between there if you want. You can do that. You will also see that we require a couple of things here. So first of all, you need the 3 fully qualified domain names. You need one and reverse lookups. So you need one for the installer, one for the security services platform instance, that's where you're doing management, and you need one for what they call the messaging services. This is what NSX will use to, I guess, report back information on. So 3 fully qualified domain names. You'll also need 2 IP pools, one for the nodes and one for the services IPs. It says both must be part of this subnet, okay? Let me put the router here. Whatever this subnet is here, right? Me in my environment, I just got one flat subnet, so it's nice and easy. You'll notice, again, my services pool, I'll point this out again a little bit later when I'm doing the install. Notice mine is 172.20, let's zoom in a bit, 172.20, 10, 120 to 135. Notice it's starting at 120. Notice my instance name, it's taken the first IP. And notice again, the services is taking the second IP, okay? The installer doesn't matter. So the instance and the services IP have to be the first 2 IPs in that pool for your services, okay, folks? So, so this is our first part. We got to set all this up before we can start taking advantage of all these other cool services, which I'll cover in different videos. I think that's about it. So why don't we jump into it? All right, so why don't we jump to it? So before we start installing this, what we need to do is you need to go to Broadcom and download it. Now I've already logged into my Broadcom environment and my downloads, and I'm going to go to VMware Firewall. Now, if you don't have access to this stuff, if you're a vMug Advantage member and you get VCF certified, you'll get access. So this just happened about a week or 2 ago. So I'm just going to go into VMware Firewall. From there, you'll see Firewall Advanced Threat Prevention. Again, the latest version as of today, filming is version 5.x, and today is July 10th, 2025. Again, I've already agreed to this, so you'll see the vDefend Security Services Platform. Let's click on View Group and just show you what you need to download. So you need to download the platform, the Security Services Platform Installer, which is an appliance, an OVA. And then you need to download this bundle, okay? So we'll see this bundle in a second. This is about 2 gigs in size. You can see that's about 4 gigs in size, all right? So you download those. I've already done it. So let's get rid of that. Let's deploy in my environment that installer. So I'll say deploy OVF, pretty straightforward. I'm gonna go local file. And then from there, I'm gonna go to my vDefend directory. Where did I put that? And vDefend. There is the appliance. I'm going to select that, say open, and I'm going to click next. You're going to give it a name. So I'll call it SPP dash, too many S's, dash installer, dash 1, whatever. I just threw a dash 1 in there because I felt like it. And then you'll pick your host, your data center, your host where you're going to install it. I'm just going to put it on this one host. And then from there, just let this churn for a few seconds. And installing the appliance is really not that difficult. It's just like any other appliance, to be honest with you. And again, you just read through this stuff here. I'm going to click next. Now it's asking me what data store I'm going to put it on. I'm going to dump it on this data store here. I'm going to go thin provisioning just to save some space, all right? I'm going to go next. You probably want to do thick in your environment, but I'll leave that up to you. What virtual network is this? What port group is this going to go on? Generally speaking, would generally be connected to some kind of management network, because you know this thing needs to talk to the NSX manager and others. So I'm just going to leave it on this internal network that I have for all my appliances. I'm going to click next. Now it's asking you for the various passwords. I'm not going to bother putting in the grub password. Grub, actually, why not? Let's put it in. This is if you ever need to reset the root account, you can log in to grub. Let's look at that. Again, I don't care if you see my password. It gets blown away after this video. Then timeout, I'll leave that. I'm just going to cut and paste the passwords. It's asking for the root password, so I'll put that in. It's asking for an admin password, so I'll put that in. I just cut and paste. Again, you'll see there's my password, but like I said, I don't care that you see it because I only use it for these videos. The audit, again, I'll put that in. So root, admin, and audit. Then over here, again, it says optional parameters, internal use only. Sounds good to me. Leave it alone. The fully qualified domain name. This is the installer. Again, you should have forward and reverse lookup. You must have forward and reverse lookup set. So I already do, and I called it the spp-inst.vclass.local. So I got forward and reverse lookup set. Here's my IP address, 10.20.10.37. Is that correct? Yeah, that's the one I want. And my subnet mask and my gateway. All right, so you'll enter all that information in for your environment. And again, I showed you this stuff, these IPs and stuff on that little PowerPoint there. What's my DNS server? Mine is 172.20.10. Now this is important. You'll notice, let me just get rid of this. When I click on here, you'll notice that there's one there, but that's an incorrect. I actually typed that in by mistake, and I tried to do, and it went through the install, and I was doing my setups, and I had nothing but problems, right? So this is not technically checking this. So you want to make sure you got stuff correct there. I'm going to put my vclass.local. What's my NTP servers? There's my NTP servers. That's good enough for me. Am I going to enable SSH? Sure, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to allow root to log in. Again, this will be up to you in your environment. So double check your settings here. Make sure your DNS, your NTP, all that stuff's all correct, and then you click next. At that point, it gives you a summary. You hit enter, and then away it goes, starts installing, okay? So this will probably take, depending on your environment, maybe, 5-10 minutes. I'm not going to bother recording this because we don't need to see a progress bar going across. This is just like deploying any other appliance. Once it's done, I will power it on. So I'm going to pause my recording right now, then we'll come back and power it on and take it from there. All right. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. Consider supporting me or supporting the channel. Subscribe to it. All right. So see you in a bit. Okay, so the installation finished. It took about 10 minutes or so. There it is, the appliance. I'm going to right click and I'm going to power it on. Okay. I can end up going in and just looking at the boot process if I want to. But I normally let this sit for about like 5-10 minutes or so, and I'll come back to it. So I'm going to basically pause the recording, and then we'll come back and check things out. So while it's booted up, you're seeing a whole bunch of stuff over here. You see containers and all this kind of stuff, and there's Kubernetes involved here, all these wonderful things. So I'm just, like I said, I'm just going to let it continue to boot up, and I'll come back in 5 minutes and see where we stand. Okay, probably about 5 minutes have gone by. Let's launch the console again. Actually, no, I don't need to do that. I already have one open. And you can see this is kind of what it looks like. I'll hit enter, and you'll see a login prompt. I don't care about that. Let's close this, and let's open up a new browser. Now, oh, by the way, if you're wondering here why I only got the one host, this is a nested environment. Okay, and you see all these ESXi hosts there. Those are all my nested ESXi hosts, which we'll be playing with. So I actually have this running on top of my physical machine and not on top of a VM, just for performance perspective, or for performance, just in case you're wondering that. So let's open a tab and let's go to the fully qualified domain name of that installer. Notice I'm going HTTPS. I'm going to type in SSP-inst for installer.vclass.local. Again, make sure you got forward and reverse lookup. So this is the installer. When I click on that, again, you get to log in. So my username was admin, and you folks know my password because I showed it to you in the YouTube. And then we'll say login. So this is the installer. Again, here you get, again, read through the license agreement very carefully. Get your lawyers to look after all that stuff for you, whatever. And then you say, okay, whatever, up to you. You select, I agree, and then away you go. All right. Now, the first thing we need to do is get the package, and thank goodness there's no token that's required here, right? Anyways, that's another grief. So remember I showed you when I went to the Broadcom site. Do I still have that page open? Probably not. No, I don't. Remember I showed you the OVA and the bundle? You need to download that bundle, and that's what this is asking for. So I'm going to click on upload. I could do it through a local file or URL. I'm going to do it local file, and then it's on my D drive, basically. There's that bundle. So again, that's why you need both of those. So there we go. It sees it, and then I'm going to say upload. And then at that point, it's doing an upload. It's pretty straightforward. This does take a little bit of time. If I remember correctly, probably about 10 minutes or so. So I'm just going to let this run and probably have a little bit of tunes running in the background. I'll try to keep the tune volume low, and then we'll continue on from there. All right? So see you in a bit. Okay, we can see that it's successfully uploaded. Let's go full screen here, and we can see that it's successfully uploaded the package, right? And then I can click on getting started here. So at this point, I can start, well, getting started with this thing. So let me stop my recording, and then we'll continue on. I always like to break up my recordings. See you in a second. So let's get started. So it's asking me for the instance name here. You can look at some of the requirements. Again, it says all lowercase, no uppercase. There's a few things here. It says hyphens are allowed, alphanumeric name. So my instance, I'm just going to call it V class. I actually tried calling it SP once, and it didn't seem to like that. But I haven't confirmed that. Anyways, I don't know if anybody out there knows. The version, again, this is what we just previously uploaded, so it detected that. The deployment type, now you get to do advanced, which is for production use. Evaluation is not for production use. I cannot convert, let's say, well, I'm going to go evaluation mode, right? And then later I'll convert it. No, you can't do that. You got to start over, right? So advanced is for production. And then it talks about the number of worker nodes here. With advanced, you basically, you have anywhere from 4 to 10 worker nodes. That VMware recommends at least 5. This is going to depend, I guess, on how large your environment is and the workloads it needs. I'm going to go evaluation mode. Evaluation mode will spin out 1 controller and 2 workers, right? So it makes it a little bit smaller for like a lab environment. The instance name, fully qualified domain name. Okay, so, and then we have our messaging, fully qualified domain name. So the instance is, let me go back to my iPad, iPad only. So on my iPad, the instance name, here's my installer. That's what we installed, okay? The instance name is, again, this whole thing. So in my environment, I'm calling it ssp.vclass.local. So security services platform, right? And you'll see there's its IP address, all right? I'll talk about that again shortly. And let's go back to here. So iPad only. So that's the instance name. Then the messaging fully qualified domain name. I'm calling mine. Where was mine now? I thought I had it listed here. Installer, SSP. Yeah, and then the services. I got mine SSP-service. And then there's its IP address. You need forward and reverse lookup set for both of these. This is what the NSX manager uses to talk to the back-end system, I guess, to report stuff. Let's go back to here. So my instance name is ssp.vclass.local. Make sure you got forward and reverse lookups. And then the messaging, or that's the services fully qualified, I called it ssp.service. Yeah, service.vclass.local. Again, you need forward and reverse lookup set. I'm going to click on set user passwords. Again, this is where you go in and type in your passwords for this. Again, I don't care if you see mine, like I said. I blow it away. I'm just going to copy and paste. Save a bit of time there. Then I click on next. Now it's asking me for my vCenter server credentials, okay? So I'm going to click on connect now. I'm going to type in the fully qualified domain name of my vCenter server. Username, administrator, vSphere.local, and the password. Now I got to get the certificate. How do I get that? Okay, so I'm going to go to here. I'm going to go to my vCenter server, site a-vCenter server, vclass.local. Now notice I'm just going straight to the fully qualified domain name. I'm not typing in /UI. And when I hit that, this is the screen I get. So make sure you don't put in the /UI to get the login screen. So then you go over to here, download trusted root CA. When I click on that, oh shoot. Anyways, you need to click on that to download the trusted root CA. It will be zipped up, you unzip it. And when you unzip it, if you go over here now, I already got mine downloaded. I downloaded mine into a folder called cert. There it is there, it's zipped up, okay? And then I unzipped it, and then in there you'll see certs, and you'll see Windows, Linux, Macs, whatever, right? So I'm gonna go into this directory here to get it. So let's go back, let's kill this, we don't need this. Let's go into here, I'm gonna say, you can cut and paste, I'm gonna say browse local files, and then I'm gonna go into my C drive, cert, download, certs. It doesn't matter what directory I go in here. So there is the cert there, and I'll go open, and then bam, it pastes it in there, okay? So that's how you get that. I'm gonna click on connect. There we go. All right, so now it's connected to my vCenter server. It's found my data center. So you pick your data center where you're installing the the security services platform. Okay, so you would click on. So that's the data center I want to do it to. What cluster? I got 2 clusters in my environment. Actually, if I show you, sorry, dash. Yeah, let me just log in. Mistake there. So you'll see I've got 2 clusters here. I got a compute cluster. This cluster has been prepared for NSX, so I've already got that running. And then I've got my management cluster here. You notice I got four hosts here. I got about 96 gigs on each host. And I put in 20 processors because this thing, there's some workloads that need 16 virtual CPUs. So this thing is not for the faint of heart when it comes to resources. This is why I threw a lot of stuff at it here, right? So let me go back to here. So there's my, I'm going to put it on my management cluster. That's where I'm installing the security services platform, man. Anyways, what storage policy? Now, I'm using vSAN. So again, I'm just going to pick my vSAN default storage policy. If you're not using vSAN, there are extra instructions you got to do to configure storage policies on your data store. And they talk about that in the installation guide. What's the content library? What data store am I going to use for the content library? Okay, I'll use that vSAN data store. And then what resource pool? This is optional. If I had a resource pool there, I could have picked that. I don't care. This is important here. Now, in production, I'm going to leave this alone. It says reserve resources, right? If I just click on that, it says assign CPU memory resources only to the security services platform, restricting access to other VMs or resource pools. So this is going to give, like your VMs that it deployed, memory reservations equal to the amount of memory that VM has. So this thing's sucking back a lot of resources. I'm going to remove this because I don't want that in my lab environment. Now notice the big deactivating. This is giving you a warning here, right? This is not recommended in production, so don't do it in production. I'm going to say deactivate, okay? So that's good enough for me. I'm going to click on next. Now this is the part here. It's asking me what distributed switch is this going to use, right? So again, it's going to connect all this stuff to a distributed switch. So I'm going to put this on my management distributed switch because I got separate distributed switches for each cluster. You don't have to. What port group? I'm putting this on my management port group on that distributed switch. So this way NSX Manager can talk to it, all that stuff. Now, subnet here, right? This is the subnet, my management subnet. If I go back to here, actually there's a couple of things I want to point out here. So actually we'll just put this in. 172.20.10.0/24, and the gateway in my environment for that management network is that. 1 second, I got a phone call. Sorry about that. Okay, then it's asking me from my node IP pool and my service IP pool. Let's go back to the iPad, and I've already got my node IP pool, right? It's right here. That's for these nodes. And the services IP pool, notice again, it's 172.20.10.120 all the way up to 135 is what I'm going to give it. Is that what I got down? Yeah, that's what I got down. Now notice this pool here. It starts at 120, all right? Now my security services platform, the fully qualified domain name, notice that, it's 120. So this has to be the first IP in that pool. And then the services, notice it's 121, has to be the second IP in that pool. So this here, your fully qualified domain names that you created, the 2 of them, have to be the first 2 IPs in that service pool. Okay, so you got to watch out for that. So let's go ahead and put those in. So let's go back to my left screen here. So my node IP pool is 172.20. And I said 10.100 to 172.20.10.119, and then my services pool is 172.20.10.120. to 172.20.10.135 I have. Okay. By the way, if you don't have enough IPs, when it goes through the validation, it'll come back and give you an error on that. NTP servers, right? Oh, I got to copy my NTP server. So you want to make sure you got that. Let me just get that. Give me a second here. Come on. I should have these things memorized by now, to be honest with you. But I don't. Got other stuff to keep in the brain. All right, so I'll copy that one. And again, this is comma separated. And I'll change that to 1. These are just some local NTP servers. My DNS server, 172.20.10.10. And then my domain search will be vclass.local. That's pretty much about it. Okay, double check everything. You know, let's go through. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me, right? So again, like I said, that node pool and the server pool. If you don't have enough IPs here, again, it'll come back and give you warnings on that during the validation. I'll say save and proceed, and then at this point, run pre-check. Okay, so it's going to go through and run my pre-check. Now, usually, let's see what happens here. This will probably take a little while to go through, especially down where is it? NTP. Right here. This last part here, check network reachability. It actually deploys a test VM to test to do IPs to test things out, right? So I'm just going to let this run, and we'll see what happens. Boom, see how fast everything went there. Bam. So it's now deploying this VM. It kills me how it just went boom, all the way through all those. Network reachability. Let's see what's going on here, okay? See over here, it's actually deploying a VM. If I open this up, so it's deploying a VM. I notice this thing sits at 0% for a very, very long time. And all of a sudden, bam, it's done, right? So that's going to go for a while. I'm just going to leave this thing running, and I'll probably speed this up. So we'll see us back in a bit. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to let it run. And yeah, we'll speed it up and take it from there. Well, we see that worked out well. The validation went through. This is not 100%. I was playing around with it a few times where my validations went through okay, but the deployment failed. So let's start the deployment. This deployment will take about an hour to do if everything goes well. The part where I've run into some issues before, I've run into issues here with the creating content library. Notice it's got like 1 out of 3 tasks. And remember, I'm in a nested environment. I do all kinds of really weird stuff. I'm suspending stuff, you know, all that kind of stuff. And when it failed on my content library, I just had to bounce my vCenter server, and it was working fine. The workload cluster, to me, is probably the area, if it's going to have issues, it may be there, because it's deploying some VMs. It's deploying that worker nodes and the controller. And what I've noticed, if it deploys it, and if it hasn't come up in 10 minutes, I think that number is 10 or 15 minutes, it deletes it and then it tries again, and deletes it and tries again, and it keeps doing this, and this eventually will time out, right? There's some stuff on the communities that I've seen, and what I've noticed is sometimes, and the reason for that is for some reason it looks like the controller comes up and running, but the nodes don't, for whatever reason. And I think my issue was time synchronization. I noticed, not with my vCenter server, but with this installer, right? With the security services platform installer. So check your time and stuff like that. Make sure you got proper time synchronization set up, right? But that's about it. I'm just going to let this run, and then we're pretty much, you know, done at that point. So we'll see you back in an hour. But in YouTube land, it's like this. By the way, consider supporting the channel. Hit that subscribe button, okay? Let's let this run. Okay, as we can see, it was successfully installed. And this is what the interface looks like over here, right? I'll talk more about this interface. I'll probably do a separate video on it. But again, this is where we can go and manage some of the stuff. This is now that it's deployed. Let's go and log into it. Let's log into ssp.vclass.local, and that's the installer there. And I'm going to do my local account. Admin. Took about an hour for it to complete the installation. Okay, and I'll show you a couple things that it did here. So right now, it's initializing the security services platform. Comes up and says, okay, hey, improve the code. I'll join this. Okay, whatever. I'll say save. And then at that point here, it's asking me to connect to the NSX manager. You know what? We're going to do all that stuff in another video, all right? And then we'll take a look at the interface. But that's it. Oh, actually, let's do one more thing here. Let's see what was deployed. So let's go into the vSphere client. I'm going to log in administrator. Not local. Okay. vSphere local. And we will see. Again, I'm not a Kubernetes guy or Tanzu guy or anything. I played with the stuff, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert at it, right? You see there's a resource pool here. It's called Security Services Platform, SSP, and then my instance name, vClass. And then over here, you see, remember I did evaluation mode, right? So there is actually the controller. There's the two workers. If I click on the controller, you'll see, let's get this out of the way. Let's see what we can see on this. You'll see, again, this is an evaluation. It's 4 processors, 8 gigs of RAM. Nothing too crazy there. These guys, 16 processors, 64 gigs of RAM. So, again, not for the weak-hearted here, right? So they're fairly large VMs. And this is an evaluation mode. Remember, advanced mode, that's production. You can have 3 controllers and anywhere from 4 to 10 worker nodes, okay? So that's basically it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it beneficial. I'll be doing some more videos on this as time goes on. And leave any comments and questions down below. And consider supporting the channel. Very simple. Hit that subscribe button. See you in the next one. Bye for now.